to the Birth Boot Camp podcast. I'm Hollie Hopley, the CEO.
I'm Cheryl Ameling, the certification coordinator.
And today we are excited to talk to Dr. Jay Warren. We came across him on Instagram a little while ago, and so we're super excited to have you with us to chat with you about all sorts of things today. But will you just tell us who you are, what you do, how you kind of got into this space?
Sure. Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you for having me. So I am a perinatal chiropractor. I am in San Diego. I practice in a prenatal wellness center. So perinatally, the majority of my practice is pregnancy, postpartum. I work on pediatrics as well, so babies like up to about a year or so. But it was through becoming part of this wellness center. It's the CAP Wellness Center, owned by an OB that's very naturally oriented. He created it so that women could get adjusted, do acupuncture, get massage. We teach birth education classes. We have infant CPR. We have a weekly breastfeeding support group. We do amazing things for women to support them during the pregnancy. And when we launched, we were great at that. And we quickly realized we dropped the ball postpartum for these mamas. We were taking really great care of them during, and then we quickly realized we didn't have more support for them postpartum. And so that's where the lactation consultant came in, have the weekly breastfeeding support group. We have Mom and Me Yoga, pelvic floor PT, all of these things under the same roof, where we have all these great practitioners. But me being the only guy in the center, and also at that time when we first couple of years was the only one that did any pediatrics. That was the time I saw dads coming through. It was usually at that first newborn exam that I finally get to meet the dad, and it was then that I saw just deer in the headlights, and dad's overwhelmed and not really know what was going on and needing support as well. And so I took that ball and ran with it and created dad's groups. I created, at the time, this is before COVID, I created a new dad's class so to teach them pregnancy, birth, the role of a man in birth, baby bonding for dads, transition to fatherhood. And then with COVID kind of shutting down, I put it all onto an online course, and I teach it in that way now, but I still hold dad's classes as well, and dad support groups, because dads really need help and they need support. And sometimes we need it like dad to dad. And that's what we want to talk about here today.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
I should also mention I'm a dad too. So that is.
How many children do you have?
Yeah, just the one. My son, Nico, just turned 10, and it was actually through his birth. We did a home birth, and our doula and hypnobirthing instructor helped found the prenatal wellness center that I'm in a year after he was born. And that's how I came to be a part of that center. But also as a dad, knowing what it was like in that overwhelm and with all the expectations placed on me, I wanted to step into that really powerfully and actively. It took a while for me to figure out what I was doing, and wanting to have support from other dads. Like, I'm sure you've seen this, like in postpartum, like women, if they're feeling isolated, they don't think that there's support for them out there, but quickly, if they reach out and are referred to it, there's a lot of support for moms. And I'm so grateful that there is. There isn't a lot for dads. There just isn't.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted that as a dad. I just couldn't find it. And so that was partly why I created it for the other dads.
Yeah. This is making me think, let's see, in September, we went to DoulaCon in Denver, and we gave a presentation, and one of the statistics that we actually found, what was it, like 68% of dads said that they want more education. They want that, but it's hard to find for dads.
And birth education has changed so much, and that it is geared and speaking to dads a little bit more so than just the dads being in the class and kind of just sitting next to the mom and it all being focused on the mom. So that's wonderful. And at the same time, I've found in the dads groups that I've led, there are a lot of like concerns, deeper questions about things that aren't often voiced in those kind of classes because they don't want to look like they don't know what they're doing. They don't want to be that, appear that ignorant to things, but they're craving the information and they want to be really good dads. It's just sometimes that dynamic in a group where it's dad to dad, like more can come out. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have to like take all that in for a second because yeah, I mean I can totally see that. I had a class one time, because our classes really do focus on the dad, on the partner, like that's a big component of what we do. And I can totally see what you're saying about like there might not be things that come out. And I think too, like in our classes, because the focus is not just on mom, and because there are couples, like there are like that does allow a little more space, but not in the same way that it would man to man. And I think it's even the same for like women to women, like there's probably things that don't come out in class because there are men there.
Right.
And, so I think that that's really like important to do something as a couple, but then also have those individual spaces where you feel comfortable because you're in people, with people that are doing the same thing as you at the same time. You have the same questions, they're the same, so like there's a place for all of it, a need for all of it, I guess.
Right.
Also,
a good example of that is in our center, we used to teach a VBAC class, and it was at first for couples. And after a while, the instructors decided to have it be women only because they were finding there were things that fears, going through the experience of the first birth or that birth that was ended in cesarean was they weren't able to go as deeply. And so they wanted the women only. And I felt very strongly against that because I felt the dads also needed to be a part of that conversation, because if they're holding fear, they're worried that something is going to happen this next time and it's not really processed, then that fear and that energy is going to be carried into this VBAC. And I didn't win that conversation. They changed it in that way, but I think that all of it is helpful together as a couple. I mean, the most powerful thing I think about having dads in the birth class is like you as a couple go into this amazing birth experience as a team, as it like knowing each other, where you're gonna, what you want out of the birth, how to go about things, and dad to really be active in that. I firmly believe like launches the whole family in a much stronger way. And having dad be connected in that birth experience is such a pivotal emotional, spiritual experience to bring this baby in. And if dad's bathed in that experience, like actively, rather than just fearfully in the corner, like holding a leg or something like that, then they're going to be that much more bonded to one as the triad, like the mom, dad, and baby triad, but also to the baby. And that is a big reason why I do a lot of the dad's work with hopefully in pregnancy and or in the postpartum period, because that bonding between dad and the child is so important for the rest of the whole parenting experience. And if you're waiting until like you can throw a ball with the baby or the kid later on down the line, like you're missing out on so much.
Well, and that's what that's kind of the initial Instagram, when you commented on one of our Instagram posts, we had made a post about like how like birth can be this like really amazing life-changing event for the mom, but then you came and commented about the dad, and I was like, yes, absolutely. And that's like, I look at all the work that we do, like, we focus a lot on the birth, but like, because that one day is so important for, like you said, for launching this family, and helping with that bonding and stuff. So that's initially where I was like, we have to talk to you. So anyways,
I love it. Like this is like I get excited about this topic because like the couple and the dad, like there's so much that goes into it, like you were saying. And so I love that. I love the work that you do. Okay, so let's jump in. You
Okay.
wrote a series called 9 Myths About Becoming a Dad,
Mhm.
and it's amazing. I love it. Like it's my new like send to everybody. It's so good.
Oh, thank you.
Um, so we want to talk about a few of our favorites, and then we'll
Mhm.
leave the link so that it's like a teaser. It'll be like,
Sure.
look, these are a few of them, but go read the rest of them because they're all so good. And you kind of you touched on this, so this is a great first one. So myth number one: there's not that much to do as the dad until the baby gets older.
Mhm.
So, you know, I mean, what do I do? Well, I have to wait until I can throw a football at him. So at
Right.
him, to him, probably to him, huh?
Yeah. Hopefully to him,
Hopefully
not
to
at
him.
him.
Yeah. So let's talk about that one because there's a lot that dads can be doing and should
Mhm.
be doing. So kind of like break that down. What are some things that dads can and should be doing before football time?
Sure. I mean, there's absolutely so much logistically supporting mom and baby that absolutely dads can and should be doing. I mean, that's something that I talk with men all the time is like, like mama's recovering from 9 months of pregnancy, recovering from the birth, figuring out breastfeeding, trying to do all that recovery, intermittent sleeping, worried about baby breathing, feeding, all those kind of things. And you can support her in that by doing everything else,
Mhm.
like all the house stuff, all the food, all the diaper changes, all those things, like whether you do it yourself or arrange for it, that is your thankless job of taking care of the family. That's you providing. That is you supporting your whole family behind the scenes, maybe not behind the scenes, but not
Mhm.
doing necessarily the baby work there. But as far as newborn care, being an active dad and an active caregiver, studies have shown that dads nowadays are spending 3 times the amount of time they did a generation ago in
Wow.
newborn care.
Yeah.
And that expectation is placed on us, rightfully so. I mean,
Mhm.
a generation ago, dads just didn't really do anything. And I'm happy that that's changed. And I
Mhm.
think that with diaper changes, with taking babies for walks and soothing and bath time, all of those things are very bonding for dads to be able to get to know their baby, because a lot of dads will feel behind in the connection sense with their child because they're meeting their baby for the first time at the birth, versus mom had 9 months of nurturing and growing and
Mhm.
connecting with this child, and they're not privy to the oxytocin blast that both baby and mama are getting during the birth. They will get the ripple effects if they're actively engaged, and they'll feel that connection there. But it's really important for, with that newborn caring and figuring out diaper changes and figuring out bouncing and figuring out like soothing techniques, is a bonding experience for dads to really start connecting with their kiddos. And the more skills a dad has before they go into that experience, the more confident they're going to feel doing those things, whether it's a diaper change. I mean, diaper changes, you get a lot of practice. So you're going to be able to figure
Mhm.
that out. I changed one diaper before my son was born. And it was a
Oh,
month or so
Yep.
before my son arrived. A friend of mine had a newborn, and we're like, you haven't changed it. Get over here. Like,
Yeah.
let me show
show
you
you
how
how
to
to do
diaper. And
this.
like, I
Yep.
did it really well. Like, oh, I'm
Yep.
1 for 1. But in the figuring out and getting the diapers wrong. And, I remember one time in the middle of the night, I put the diaper on backwards. And I
Yeah.
was like, why are these tabs not sticking? And I had this whole thing in my head. I need to write the company in the morning. Like, why would you not like make these diapers properly? But then I realized I was just doing it wrong. And I picked the baby
User
up, big up
error.
Nico, and it falls off. And it was just funny, and it was a bonding experience, like with him, to be able to get things wrong. And it's through that experience of taking charge, taking over, and having skills to be able to figure that out, that really relieves mom a lot, right? So
Mhm.
Yeah.
most of the women, in doing all the polling that I did to create these courses, asking moms, like, what did your partner do really well that you want all dads to do for their partners? And what did they drop the ball on that you wish they did better? I put all that information together in these courses. And one of them said is they just really wanted dad to like take charge and like do things, right? Not have to be told when or how. And so part of that comes from confidence of when I say I got this, that I actually feel I got this. And even more important for the mom to feel like, all right, he's going to take over for an hour, but like, I'm going to have to listen the whole time because I'm going to have to jump in. And that's something I like talking to the moms about, of really giving your partner time alone with the baby to figure things out. They might do things wrong. They might do it differently, but that's okay, you know? And
I struggled with that with my first a lot. And I'm grateful I kind of learned it over the years with our other kids, but I struggled with that a lot. I was like, I have to just let him do it.
And obviously like advice and some how-tos and things can be helpful, but if it's coming from like a hovering sense and giving, all right, here, go for it, and then 3 seconds later jumping in, no, that's not how you do it, let me just take over, it just kind of cuts the legs out from underneath us, and we're less likely to jump in next time because we're kind of anticipating getting taken over again a couple of seconds later, right? So if moms can give the space for us to figure it out, that's going to allow dad to figure it out more. But also dads need to come to the table with some skills on how to do things so they're not fumbling around, you know, and with the confidence, but just even the willingness to jump in and do that. And at least the dads that I work with, they're really wanting that. They're really wanting to be great dads and great caregivers in that sense. They just don't necessarily have the confidence yet. And that's what your programs are about. What my programs is about is just to teach those simple things so they can jump in and enjoy those experiences rather than being stressed by them.
Absolutely. I love all of that. I know, I'm just thinking back to like my first, and I'm like, man.
I know.
So
me too.
And it's, you know, I'm older. I was 41 when became a dad, but a generation ago, my dad is a perfect example. It's like my dad was part of a pilot program. I was born in 1972, a pilot program allowing dads to be in the birth room in the hospital at St. John's Hospital in LA. I have the contract. It was a 3-month program where OBs were experimenting with letting the dads in. And that was innovative. It was 50 years ago.
It's
and
not that
now,
long
like,
ago.
if you're not in the birth class and you're not going to prenatal visits and things, something's wrong. Either like dad's traveling, he's been deployed, or there's a problem, right? Like we're supposed to be there. And that is the right place for us to be. It's just generationally, we don't have any references for it. Culturally, it's becoming more part of the dad's culture to be doing that, but it's still brand new. And so we don't really have the references to just jump in automatically. We meaning men, like we have parental instincts or fatherly instincts in the same way that moms have maternal instincts. It's just we don't trust them. And this is the first kind of time of first playground we have to dive into them and to start trusting them.
Yeah. So interesting. So I had literally never thought about that before. I had heard the statistic that like fathers are spending more time with their children than a generation ago, but I never really thought about like, you guys are like the pioneers. You're like the ones that are figuring out how to do that, how to spend more time, how to be supportive, because your fathers weren't that. So that's really interesting. That I think that puts that puts a different light on it in my head that that I had never really considered before.
Right. And to be stereotypical, like if a man like won't ask for directions when they're lost in a car ride, we're not going to ask for directions like how to take care of their baby, right? We're not going to. And that again of what we were saying is like sometimes we need a space for like dad to dad to explore that. A really common experience once there was a safe environment set up in the dads group when we were meeting face to face. So many dads said that they didn't feel connected with their baby for months afterwards. They felt that something was wrong with them because they did not feel the same way, that it looked like moms staring into their baby's eyes and cooing and goo goo gagaing. The guys felt like, I love this baby. I want to protect this baby. I want to do everything I can, but I'm not feeling the feels in that way. And they felt something was wrong with their heart. They felt like something was wrong with them.
Wow.
And it wasn't until like 3 months when baby's waking up and they're more interactive and they're smiling at you and things like that, that they felt there was an exchange and more bonding. But just for a man to hear that that's very common takes pressure off.
Yeah. And to feel that, like, to know that other dads feel that. And
yes,
yes.
because we can feel very alone in that. And I mean, parenthood can be very isolating, especially in the first 3 months. I mean, women can feel that way so much, and dads feel the same. And so having spaces and support systems, whether it's your peer group, whether it's your friends, or a group that you find locally to share what's going on, get support in it, to realize I'm not alone in this, realize I'm not the only one that's going through this, allows that pressure to come down. And then we can engage that much more rather than feeling something's wrong with us. It's like, okay, this is something I need to work out, and I will.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm going to add that to my class.
Right.
That's
awesome. Okay, the next myth that everybody wants to talk about, this one, is myth number 4. You'll start having sex again at 6 weeks.
Right.
Because that's what we see on social media. There's funny videos and memes about it. We talk a lot about this in the last class of our comprehensive one. This is a conversation that everybody needs to hear. And it's so important for both partners. But what do you kind of have to add to that? And how can we set like a realistic expectation about what their intimate life after baby is going to be like?
Right. I think, I mean, stereotypical 6 weeks, you're green lighted for sex and exercise really needs to be, for women especially, to put into like a more realistic context of like, that's most women that I've talked to said that's way too soon, way too soon for either. Right. And especially with intimacy for the men there, if that's their love language and they're wanting to reconnect in that way, then possibly going to the OB visit and hearing an OB say, okay, yeah, like you're fine at 6 weeks. They kind of look at their partner and be like, we're good, right? Let's go. Come on. Instead of it being a conversation between you and your spouse about how are we feeling? How would you like to start exploring intimacy again? That should be the conversation between the spouse, rather than hearing from an outside source of, okay, it's okay, you're ready to do so. I'm like, well, that's not true. Somebody asked me how I'm feeling about it. So having dads understand how much physiological change is still happening in the 6-week mark, whether it's postpartum and a recovery from birth, hormonally, a lot of times intimacy and intercourse like just feels different emotionally, like I'm not ready for that, or it's changed and we kind of need to re-explore that part of our relationship again. And having that as a conversation to start maybe at 6 weeks, or maybe even better beforehand, when you're not in the trenches of intermittent sleep and there's another thing put on the plate that a mom's got to manage, of, wanting to have intimacy with your partner, but not really wanting to have intimacy yet. Right. There's other ways of being like intimacy and having sexy time that doesn't involve things that aren't that physiologically ready yet. But having a dad hear that the 6-week mark is really unrealistic, guys. It's more of a 3-month mark, and it's an ongoing conversation that some women don't feel comfortable for a period after that, then puts it into a bigger perspective of like, this is a huge change, and everyone goes through it in a different way, and having different expectations of like, why is she saying no to me, rather than how can I support further so that we can regain and reconnect in that way? And if that's not on the table right now, how do we do it in different ways so we as a couple can be bonded again? Because the shift got to baby, 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 and like, well, what about
Right.
it? Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We definitely encourage them to like have that conversation and to keep open communication about how they're feeling, and things like that. And I think it's important for them to remember too, like there's so much more that you can do like than just intercourse. Like go out, even if you like leave baby with grandma and you literally just go through the drive-through and you sit there and talk. Like there's so many different things that they can do to connect in an intimate way that maybe for one, it doesn't have to involve a ton of physical stuff. But if they want it to be physical, there is a lot more that they can do than just have sex. And so I think that we definitely encourage them to have that conversation and talk about that. And
Yeah. I've heard women say, like, I just, because they have a baby on them all the time. Like their body is meeting the physical need of a tiny human 24/7. You don't get a break. And so like the idea of having your body needs to meet somebody else's need too can feel so overwhelming. Like I've heard lots of women talk about that. So yeah, like setting these realistic expectations, like sharing other ideas. Like, yeah, I love all of that, because that 6-week mark may or may not be, go time, like you said.
Right. And I think it's all about setting expectations, and putting it in conversation rather than like sweeping under the rug. And this is like an unconscious, or maybe it's a conscious fear, but there's that part of any conversation that's not really being talked about of, okay, if we don't get this started again, it's never going to start again. Like we're never going to have sex again if we don't do it. Right. And that there's no light at the end of the tunnel, in the same way that like when you're in newborn care in the first 3 months, like there's a point usually around the second month where you're like, I'm never going to feel rested ever again. Like I'm never going to feel energy ever again.
Right.
Right. The tunnel, it changes, but having all of these things about whether it's these 9 myths or expectations of parenthood and roles that are being played and divvying up chores and all those kind of things, the more that it can actually be talked about and explored, then takes the pressure off of each one of these little things. It's just, when it's not talked about, there's outside expectations, like 6 weeks we're having sex again. At 3 months, the baby should be sleeping through the night. This. And when it doesn't match that, because it never does,
right.
Yep.
Then we feel something's wrong with our family, our parenting, with her, with me, whatever it is, because Instagram's saying that we all should be like looking like that at 3 months. And we're clearly not. So if we can all just be, if the couple and the family can be a team together to navigate it together, rather than putting outside expectations onto themselves, the whole family is going to be healthier and happier. And that is going to translate to the baby. Like having a happier and healthier mom and dad just nurtures them in a totally different way than having stress and resentment and all these unsaid, icky feelings in the house that the baby doesn't have really a context of what it is, but they're being immersed in that energetic field, and that's not good for them, so.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So good conversations to have. Okay, so our last myth that we're going to talk about, myth number 9: nothing can prepare you for fatherhood.
Yeah.
So like, what are some tips that you have for like, or advice? Because a lot of it really is just like on-job training.
Right. Yeah.
So what does that look like?
So I think partly the focus now for dads with preparing for fatherhood is exactly as you said, task oriented, around baby wearing, diaper changes, maybe some information, hopefully, about what breastfeeding actually looks like, or feeding so that they can support their partner in it. And all of that is really, really helpful. It just, as a life change, fatherhood is a pivotal experience in a man's life. It just, everything changes. And if you don't really know what is going to change, not like how it's going to change and this is how to do socially or sexually or financially, how to do every one of those things, but to have a bigger picture of all of these things are going to be different now, and this is the terrain, and how are you going to figure those things out on your own is one of the most important things I think for men to go through. Like, yes, being prepared for the birth and have the birth go as well as possible is absolutely important, but there's a whole world of parenting on the other side of it that deserves equal attention. And I think it's important for baby or for dads to know how to like change diapers and soothing techniques so they can feel confident and take pressure off of mom. But looking at the bigger picture of, all right, as a man now and as a dad now, like, how is my life going to be different? Like, priorities change. And if you don't appreciate that or understand that, especially in the first year, so much focus is going into baby world, and you resent the fact that you're not like working out as much or hanging out with your friends or being able to have the freedoms that you did before becoming a father, then it'll carry a resentment into it that it's just not healthy for anyone. And that's something that, in talking with dads, to really go through the process, what this usually happens when you become a dad, but to grieve the old you, to like grieve the old self that was either just as, and the couple needs to do that too sometimes, of like, all right, we want, if it's your first child, like becoming parents, like everything shifted. Like, remember when we could just like go to Cabo anytime we wanted? Like we're stuck here, like sleep deprived, and like we could be doing that instead. And remember, we used to go to dinners and we used to, all the things, like those things will be regained. They'll come back. It's just in this time period, all those focuses are shifted into creating the family. And the more conscious you are going into those things, the better prepared in all the different ways of changing diapers, getting up in the middle of the night to soothe baby, going for stroller walks. All of those are within the bigger context of like my new life I get to jump into and enjoy and explore, as rather than, oh, here's another thing I have to do that's taking away from what I think I should be doing. Right. Even though like most dads will know, okay, I'm going to have less time and I'm a dad now and it's different. But like buying into the whole thing of like, I'm never going to see my friends again. I'm never going to work out. I'm never going to have fun again is it's just not true. It just shifts. And so, preparing for fatherhood, yes, skills, but it's more of like the context of what is my life going to be now. And the way that a lot of dads can engage in that is answering the question, like, what kind of dad do I want to be? Like, what is my role to this little thing that came into the life? Like, this little soul chose me to be their dad for a reason. That's my belief. Maybe not every person has that belief. It's certainly my belief. And so it causes you to think of, all right, so what do I have to offer this little child? And in the context of the whole triad of like the family, like, who am I within this? And what do I want to bring to the table? And that brings up like what my parenting was like before. Like, what was my dad like? What do I want to carry on that worked really well from my dad? And what are the things I want to improve upon? Like, those are all processes and questions to ask that are just as important as learning to change a diaper and how to do the 5 S's and all those kind of things. Right. And it's those things that allow for a lot more peace and calm to be felt in that trenches period of time, especially in newborn care, but then in the first 3 months, but then also in the first year, that will allow the whole family to be like a healthier dynamic, rather than it being like this ball and chain that can be felt as, I can't do these things, rather than like, all right, how am I going to be a different how am I going to step into that provider protector role in a new way now that I'm a father? And the men that do that kind of work just expand so much. I mean, as far as like personal development work, like fatherhood is it. it brings up everything for you to re-examine. And if you do it in a really positive way, it's going to be that much better for this next generation coming in, because we'll have active, loving, caring, engaged, conscious fathers in the family unit.
Yep.
I love that.
And I think I'm thinking of like the trickle down, like, you know, because the dads now don't really have, like we said, with that generation, we don't have them seeing that. Whereas the sons that are being raised now are seeing dads that are wanting to be. So I'm like, so they only have room to just continue to like become better and better and better because they have that example now.
Totally.
So I think that's
as far as whether it's raising boys or raising girls, like having those children see what an active, engaged, loving father figure is, and of course we want that from the mother as well, will change all of those children's relationships with men, whether it's boys becoming men, whether it's like those men having interrelationships with other men, certainly girls growing up into women and relating in that way, whether it's a romantic relationship or in the workplace or whatever, like that brings a whole level of health to this planet that we need right now. We need more love, more harmony, more connection, more heart than just logistics. And that I think is a playground for men to really play in this first year of fatherhood, to help change this generation coming in. And that's going to help change our world into a much better place.
Yeah. I was thinking too, like we were talking about, you know, like never going to spend time with our friends or work out again. I think like having conversations, having realistic expectations of what that's going to look like. Cause I think a lot of young people, you know, before you have kids, you think like, oh, I'm still going to get up and work out, and I'm not going to be the guy that doesn't hang out with my friends. And we're still going to go to Cabo, because you don't actually understand what it looks like to have an infant in the house. And so when you have those realistic expectations, and a lot of that can be from dad to dad, you know, you telling men, no, you really are going to have to put those things off. You will get back to them, or it might look different in that first time, but you know, like your after baby life is going to look different than your before baby life. And that's okay. So I love that you are like the idea of kind of looking at it as a whole, and what do you want from this, and what kind of dad do you want to be? Because I think setting those realistic expectations is important, because there's really no way to really understand what it means to bring a baby home and how totally encompassing that is until you are actually doing it.
Totally. And that's the thing about the myth, right? Like nothing can prepare you for fatherhood. Like partly that's true. Like when I had tons of friends. As I said, I was one of the last of my circle of friends to have kids. And they said the typical thing, like it's the best thing and the worst thing, right? Like it's so amazing and it's so stressful. And I kind of got it. But then when I was in it, like, oh, this is what that means.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So there isn't anything that can 100% prepare you for the embodied experience of being a parent at 2 a.m. when they're screaming their head off and you're so stressed. Like, is this an ER visit or you know, all the
exactly.
But the preparation of paving the way, learning skills allows you to navigate that moment that much better, instead of navigating all of the things at a time. So it is true that it's impossible to repair 100% until you're in it, but there's a lot you can do. But that also doesn't mean just wing it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
There's a middle ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. Okay, well, this was great. So that was kind of like your little teaser. So everybody can go hit that link and get the rest of the myths if they want.
And they should, because there's a lot of good ones on there.
Yep. Yeah. So tell us real quick about the courses that you have available, all the things that they need to know, and then like where people can find you and stuff.
Sure. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. So the new dads classes, there's 3 different modules that I put together. I broke them up into like pregnancy and birth, the first few weeks and months in a kind of a newborn care, and then a bigger picture like transition to fatherhood. And those are all at the dadhoodjourney.com. You can see those courses, and they're all online, hours and hours of resources and PDFs and journaling exercises and the like. And the first section is about pregnancy and really how to support your partner in the last trimester, like what they're going through, expectations that are placed on you and how to fulfill those. And then the birth process really is like, how can you as the dad like add to the birth experience by bringing that male energy by being the dad through their supporting, protecting the space of birth rather than protecting her from pain or from an intervention you don't want, from the nursing staff, from like that protector is alive in us. And if directed towards protecting our spouse from something instead of directing it towards like, let me protect the space of this birth so that this amazing experience can happen as it's supposed to, is a big shift for dads to learn. And then the newborn care stuff, we're talking about all kinds of baby bonding techniques, a lot of just skills that we want dads to have going into that experience to feel confident. And then the transition to fatherhood is largely what we were just talking about at the end of our conversation together around, these are all the different aspects of your life that will change, and then some tips and tools how to guide it. And that's all at the dadhoodjourney.com.
Awesome.
I love that.
Perfect. Okay.
And you can get that 9 myths, like you are providing a link that's there too. But the 9 myths PDF is on there as well.
Yep. Good. Awesome. Okay. That just sounds like, I'm like, man, where was this when we had kids? So that's awesome.
Well, that's what I was saying. I was like, where was that when I became a dad? Right. And so if I didn't have it, like, not that I'm the authority on any one of those things, but like having gathered information to be able to at least give them a little bit more information than winging it is is the work.
And I think that can give them a good starting point to, just be able to, I like to think of it as like, I want to give parents tools to be able to like, not just like survive, the first 3 months, but that to help them thrive and to help really get them off to a good, strong start. So
a really good way of putting it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this was fun. Thanks so much for hopping on and chatting with us.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Be sure to subscribe, and we will talk to you guys next week.